tender, hot and spicy, with a steamy look. It was passed on down by my mother, sweet. She told me, honey, this will be a real good treat, to turn a man's heart into a buttercream. Well, you cook a dish that makes him want jump and scream. So come into my kitchen,
Come into my kitchen.
come on down to my kitchen.
Come on down to my kitchen.
I said, come into my kitchen.
Come into my kitchen.
Come on down to my kitchen.
So, I don't know if you knew this or not, but there's over 10,000 varieties of rice. We're not going to go over all of them or even most of them, but I'm going to show you the 6 or so that are most common here in the States. Right here, you have arboreal rice, and that's what is used to make risotto. It's cooked and it's not covered. It's used. It's very starchy, and it's used to make risotto. This rice here, you can see, is much smaller, as a short grain, and in fact, it is a short grain Japanese sushi rice, and it's very starchy because you want your sushi to stick together, and has a pretty mild flavor. This rice is a type of long grain rice. You can kind of see the difference here. But this one here is jasmine rice. And it has a very nice aroma to it, which is naturally occurring. They don't spray perfume on to get it to smell like jasmine. Another long grain rice is just plain old Chinese long grain rice. Doesn't have that nice aroma that the jasmine has, but it cooks pretty quickly, and it also can stick together depending on how long you let it steam. 15 minutes of steaming, it'll be not very sticky, but still kind of has a nice chew to it. If you want it to be stickier, you'll just kind of leave it to steam for about 20 minutes. This is another long grain rice. It's probably one of the more delicate rices. This is basmati rice, usually associated with Indian cooking. And this one here cooks very quickly, probably like 15 minutes of steaming is all you would really need for that. And it's slightly aromatic, not as aromatic as the jasmine rice. And this is glutinous rice. And glutinous rice does not have gluten. So don't be thinking that, if you're gluten-free, you can't enjoy glutinous rice. But glutinous rice is also sometimes called sweet rice. And it is steamed for a longer period of time. And it is very, very sticky, which is, I think, why they call it glutinous, because it's a sticky kind of rice. So there's 6 kinds of rice.
Okay, so first thing we want to do today is just do a quick demo of cooking rice. This is kind of a companion to our podcast episode talking about rice. This is the really straightforward, simple stovetop method. I've got some rice in here. It actually is, as it turns out, it is the rice cooker plastic cups worth of rice, which technically is about 3/4 of a cup. But it really doesn't matter how much rice I had put in here, subject to the fact that I don't want to put so much rice that it wouldn't fit in the pot. But so I've got about 3/4 of a cup of rice, and I'm going to add some water. But the idea here is I'm just going to do the old traditional knuckle method, which means I'm going to put my finger down, touch the top of the rice, add water until the water reaches my first knuckle. Okay, which is about there. Just poured some water on the floor. That was good. And that's the water. And then just simply put it on the fire. And as I had mentioned in the podcast, sometimes at home I will, because I'm doing a lot of things in the kitchen, I'll actually let this boil with the lid off until I see that it's boiling and the water has gotten down to near the top of the rice, and then cover it and put it to simmer. Today we're gonna try that. I'm just gonna go ahead and cover this thing and make sure that we pay attention to this so it doesn't boil over. But when we do hear that it's boiling and we see the steam coming out, we're going to drop that temperature down. And otherwise, then after that, we'll let it go for about 15 minutes or so. We won't look. We're not going to lift the lid. And then the rice will be done. And it'll be fine. And in fact, you can even just leave it covered if you know that you're not done cooking the rest of your dinner or your lunch or whatever. Just put it off to the side and just let it sit and it'll be fine. So that's Rice 101, the simplest way. If you're doing stovetop rice cooking, it's not any more complicated than that. Again, the only measurement was water up to my fingertip. And strangely, this does work even if we had a bigger pot with more rice in it. It still works.
And what I'm going to show you now is another way to cook rice so that you can enjoy the flavors of the rice and some other ingredients. So you don't have to just use water. You could steam your rice or cook your rice with broth. You could put it in a sauce, like with cut up tomatoes and onions and peppers and things like that. And different cultures will use different ingredients to cook their rice with. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cook some rice with some Chinese sausage. This is called lapchung, and it's a dry sausage, and it's a sweet sausage. And what we'll do is we're going to use our rice cooker here, kind of keep it simple, and we're going to put in, this is 2 lengths of lapchung that I've cut on the bias, diagonally there, just to expose more of the interior of the sausage. And then we're going to put in some just plain old white Chinese rice. There we go. And the liquid that we're going to be cooking this rice with is a special kind of tea. It's called lapsang souchong tea. It's out of the Fujian region of southern China. And the story of this lapsang souchong rice is that the rice growers were trying to speed up the process for drying their tea leaves. And what they did is they tried drying it over some coals. And what they used, I don't know if it was by mistake or not, but they used pine boughs. And as you know, pine is very pitchy. And it ended up imparting this very smoky flavor to the tea. And so it was kind of a mistake, but when they took the tea to market, it was really popular. People really liked it. So now in that region of China, they make this tea specifically. So it's a smoky tea, and what we've brewed some tea here, and we're just going to, we don't want the tea leaves, so we'll put in enough tea so that when I touch the top of the rice, it just covers the first joint of my index finger. Remember, don't put it to the bottom of the pot. You want the top of the rice. There we go. And just a little bit more, and we'll be good. All right, and we'll just let the automatic rice cooker do its thing. And what the rice cooker will do is it'll bring it to a boil. There'll be a sensor. When it reaches that boil and kind of tops off, it will drop the temperature down. And we'll look in about 15 or 20 minutes. We want to make sure we don't look in. This is great because it has a glass top, so we can kind of look in without having to lift it.
Okay, so we've got our rice here. The rice cooker popped. It had a little ding, so we know this one was done. I've unplugged it and pulled it over here just so we can see it. And this is the rice that we cooked on the stove. It took about 15-20 minutes or so. We had it on a very low heat and then have since kept it covered, and we're going to uncover this and give it a fluff and take a look at it. Again, this really was something we didn't touch, and that's the key. And then now, you know, if you kind of get in here, and people do this with a fork, but that to me is good fluffy rice. It's not gloopy, but you can see, like, as a chopstick user, if I wanted to pick some up, I can pick some up. And so I get it. There's just enough tackiness to it, so that's great. But in the meantime, I'm going to keep this covered. I keep the steam in there, keep it warm. And then over here, we have Chris's tea and sausage rice. And you can see this has taken on the color from the tea. And Chris and I have been smelling this for the last 20 minutes as it cooked, and it smells incredible. I'm going to actually take a little bit of this and give it a quick taste here. That's really good. So it's got some flavor to it, and it's got the aroma from the tea, and you get it right now because I didn't take a piece of sausage, but it's definitely a hint of the sausage in there too, just because some of the fat finds its way into everything as it cooks. And so that's one way to kind of cook up your rice a little bit, or just regular simple rice. Again, this was just the kind of quote unquote fingertip method. Nothing fancy, no real measurement involved in either version. And I think that's the simplest way to go. So there you have it. Cooking rice, kind of rice 101, and this is rice 201.
Come on down to my kitchen.
Come on down to my kitchen.
Won't you come into my kitchen and now